Hey there, crafty friends. Welcome and thank you for joining me. My name is Melissa Miller. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Southern California, and today I want to take a third look at our Cottage Rose Stamp Set. Our first video that we did on this stamp set was a wedding card, and one of them we gold heat embossed, and one of them I had silver heat embossed. That's our silver one. Our second card with the Cottage Rose Stamp Set was white heat embossed on Night of Navy. And this is our third card, and I wanted something that was dark and rich and deep. So that's what we're going for here. And I'm doing several videos on the same stamp set because I want to show you that you can get so many different looks from the same stamp set. And so here today, we're using the Cottage Rose Stamp Set. And there's quite a few different images on there, rose images and then the leaf image. And we've got some great sentiments. We are going to be using the happy birthday along with the dies. You know, I think I've got some of the dies out. I do, because I'll be using them. But you get 8 dies in this die set, and it is really, really nice. And I also used my watercolor paper. Now I'm stamping on my watercolor paper because I realized when I color on it versus our regular white cardstock, I get a much deeper colors. And that's what I was after here. I wanted really rich colors. And I get that from the watercolor paper. So that's what we're using today. So first off, we need to stamp our images. And because we are going to color with, I've got a piece of watercolor here, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And because we are going to color with our blends, we need to stamp in Memento. And I need to get my magnets adjusted there. We are going to stamp in Memento. And we are going to make sure that that piece of paper is all the way up in that corner, because after we are done coloring, we are going to stamp it again just to bring out that dark, rich outline. So I've got my Memento Tuxedo Black. We are going to stamp this. I've got my sentiment and then the images that we're going to color. So let's get this inked up really well. And we are just going to put some even pressure on there. Now our first, I'm actually going to stamp this twice, but this impression does not have to be super dark because we are going to ink it up again after we color. But I still want to be able to see where my lines are and everything on there. So let's go ahead and stamp that down again. Okay, so now we can take that out of here. Don't remove your stamps. We are going to stamp it again. And what we need to do here is I want to make sure that it's really dry. So I am going to bring in my heat gun and just heat set that real quick. I think that should probably be good enough. And so for my blends, I am using my dark cherry cobbler, my dark mossy meadow, and my dark old olive. So let's go ahead and get started. And it's just basic coloring. Now, when you color on watercolor paper, you don't want to go all the way out to the line because it will bleed a little bit. So you just want to get close to it, but not all the way out because it will bleed. You don't want it to run behind the image. And we're just going to color this in. Just like that. Pretty basic coloring. And I'm only going to do one leaf at a time on here. And I'm just kind of dotting it when I get to the outside edge because I don't want it to bleed. I'm not doing really any kind of shading or anything. I'm just coloring these leaves. Let me bring in a little piece of other paper. I want to show you the difference in the richness. So I just colored that, and that's going to dry a little bit, and it's going to be lighter than our image on the watercolor paper. That's why I'm using the watercolor paper. So let's go ahead and continue to color. Okay, so now we've got our images all colored. And if you take a look at the little scribbles I did here on our regular cardstock, you can see how it kind of faded and it's not real rich. But with the watercolor paper, you get that super, super rich color. So what we're going to do now is we need to bring back our Stamparatus. We left our stamps in the same place, and we are going to stamp this up again, because what this is going to do now is it's just going to make the dark lines even darker so our image shows up even more. So let's go ahead and get our stamps inked back up, and we are still using our Memento, and we might have to do this twice. Give it some pressure, and it just pops now. You can just really see that black line, and it just really stands out. So one more time and we'll see what we get. The black lines will pop even more. There we go. That is just beautiful. I love that. On that watercolor paper, those colors are just so rich. And my green here did bleed a little bit, but you know what? That's okay. It's handmade. It's a handmade card. So I am going to step away real quick and die cut these out. Okay, so I got those images cut out with our dies, and they just cut out beautifully. And this one, the stamp had 3 flowers on it, and this die cut those out just perfect also. And then I trimmed out my sentiment. And I did go ahead and I cut 3 of just regular cardstock with this die because I want to stack my flowers here, or my flower. I didn't want to use dimensionals on that. So let's go ahead and attach that to our stacked die cuts. And it does still bleed through the back. I think especially even a little bit more because we used watercolor paper instead of regular cardstock. But that's okay, you won't see that. So we've got this image stacked, and that's going to dry for a minute. And here, I thought my background was a little bit plain, so I've got one ready of each. The plain, just regular watercolor paper, or I ran my watercolor paper through the time-worn type 3D embossing folder. I have used this one before, and this is a really nice folder. I just ran my cardstock through the die cut machine with that, and I think that is going to give us more detail. I think that's going to kind of change up our look a little bit, and I think it's going to be a little more fancy. So we're going to go with that. We're going to go with the embossed background instead of just the plain background. So let's attach this. And it does get a little bit warped in the embossing folder. And I did spritz my paper with a little bit of water before I ran it through there, just so the image doesn't crack. So let's attach that to our layering piece. So I've got my panel here cut at 4 and 5 1/4. My layering piece, my black layering piece, is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. So we've got that layered on there. We need some dimensionals for our sentiment. So what I am going to do here is I am going to just cut the edge off like we typically do to get a strip. And I'm going to put that on the back of my sentiment. Just like that. Trim that off. Put that aside. And then we can decide where we want our image. Oh, you know what? I really like that a lot better. I like this background, the embossed background. I think that looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and get these placed. I want that right there, right about there. Let me make sure it's straight. I do have a crooked eye. I think that looks pretty good. Then we can put some glue on the back of our rose here. And I'm going to use a little bit more than I normally would, just because it's going on top of that embossed image. And I want to make sure that it gets good contact. So let's just place that right there. And then we did the 3 little roses because I placed one right here at the bottom. I just kind of tucked it right in there. So let's do that also. We'll put some glue on that. We're just going to tuck that right underneath that happy birthday sentiment. And that should be good. Now we can bring in our card base, standard 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card base. And we will add our panel. I just really wanted to show everybody all the different looks that you can get from the same stamp set. And I think we successfully did that with this one here. I am going to try to do that with several different sets, just so you get different looks. I mean, we spend a lot of money on all our supplies. It's like a habit. You see something and you want it and then you don't use it. And I just want to make sure we have lots of ideas for the same stamp set. So that's on there. That's secured down. Now we can add some embellishments. And what I did here was I just brought in my classic matte dots, and we are going to use the black ones because we've got a black outline and we've got a black border. So let's bring these in. We're just going to scatter them. Same thing we always do. Let's see. I'm trying to find like a little flat area. Because that background is embossed, I want to kind of stick it in a flat area. I want to make sure that it stays on there. And we want to go with odds, so let's put one more. Do we want to do a triangle, or do we want to have it somewhere else? Let's put it up there. I think that looks good. So that's our card today. Another idea with the Cottage Rose Stamp Set. What do you think? Do you like the plain background better? Or do you like the embossed background better? I think I like the embossed. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a great day. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.